Hey, ahu, hochankraja, wakunjahade, hingadena. I want to welcome everyone to the Sunday Night Symposium. And this is brought to you by the Native American Community Clinic and Native Roots Radio. And we're going to be speaking about community safety and protection over here. And I want to hand it over immediately to our elder, Lemoy Lapointe, to take over this conversation. Welcome, Lemoy.
Thank you, Robert. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to be part of the conversation here. And I'm going to be largely facilitating the conversation. And we have currently three guests on that will be members of the panel that we're using tonight. And there may be another person joining us along the way. But I'd like to ask, first of all, Josh, then Melissa, then Lisa, to please introduce yourselves.
Yeah, hey everyone. My name is Josh Vermillion. I am a resident at Little Earth. I currently work at the Little Earth Boys and Girls Club. I'm a teen specialist. And yeah, I'm here to have a discussion with y'all.
Thank you, Josh.
Bonjour, everyone. My name is Melissa Olson. I am independent producer of public media. I host a weekly radio program on KFAI, Fresh Air Radio here in Minneapolis. I'm a resident of Northeast Minneapolis, and I do a little bit of writing and researching when I am not working at my full-time job at Migizi Communications. Thanks.
Thank you.
How Buju Anishinaabe Duke, Lisa Skefjte Indigenous Cause, Misqua Gamiwe Zaga Egani and Dunjaba, Gakabikang and Da. My name is Lisa Skefjte. I'm brand new to working with MIWRC in their program Gikanu Amage Wikaming, the Place of Learning. I'm glad to be here with all of you. Super excited for this conversation. And miigwech.
Good. Thank you, Lisa. Our conversation tonight is going to revolve around a overlapping of three topic areas. And those topic areas are safety of Little Earth youth, the potential for an innovative youth program to be created, and the possibilities that may exist in regards to Cedar Fields, which is adjacent to Little Earth. So it's a topic of discussion that we recently had, several of us, and the theme could potentially be converting park space to sacred space. Was a possible theme that we had discussed in this process. But what I'd like to do is to go to Josh first and ask Josh if what kinds of youth activities are currently taking place at Little Earth.
Okay, so the programs that me and a coworker have been running for a few months now. So if you guys didn't know, the Little Earth Boys and Girls Club is not suitable to do programming for like not even 100 youth, right? So actually, hold on. Okay, the programs that we've been running at the Little Earth Boys and Girls Club is basically just we got an esports program running up. So we're teaching kids how to learn the business side of streaming when it comes to like games and stuff, such as like, because I mean, ever since this pandemic hit, every kid has just been inside playing games all the time. They just can't go outside. So that's what a lot of people have been resorting to is gaming. So we thought it would be best to start our very own esports tournament, Indigenous esports team. And so far, I mean, we got a name, we got a team name, we got a logo, we got a Facebook page going up. It's called IGT. IGT stands for Indigenous Gaming Tribes. And I mean, it has potential, but we just started. So I mean, hopefully it blows up. I believe it'll blow up if we just get kids involved with it and engaged. So yeah.
Good. Well, thank you, Josh. That's a good current background on what's happening at Little Earth right now. But we'd like to go as a little further back to begin with about the background, including the founding of Little Earth and some of the chronological happenings that have occurred since that founding of Little Earth. And I'd like to begin with Lisa and Lisa, I'd like you to just talk a bit about what you know about the background of Little Earth.
Thank you so much, Lemoyne. And first, I would really want to say thank you to Josh. I think it's super important to have the representation of youth on this. And also, like for me, like I grew up in Little Earth. I was a youth in Little Earth. And from what I understand about it, and I'm going to ask the other panelists to join in with me to like help describe that history. It began in the early 70s. My grandmother was one of the first residents. My grandmother was Teresa Maddie Dunkley. Her and her family was one of the first residents at Little Earth. She lived there all the way up until she moved back to Red Lake not too long ago. So she lived in Little Earth for over 30 years. And she was like the grandma at Little Earth, and they gave her a plaque that said she was the longest resident, and she was really proud of that. And people were folks at Little Earth really take good care of the elders. And even for me, growing up there, I got a chance to have a lot of access to different households and folks from different tribes. And I remember hearing stories about Little Earth, about AIM, about Cedar Field, about the parks. And some of those stories have really stuck with me. Like one story about just like how powerful Little Earth is I remember my mom always told a story about when she was pregnant with my brother. So my brother's 39. And when she was pregnant with my brother, there was a tornado that hit Minneapolis, and it was on Lake Street, and it damaged the Sears Tower. And the story goes, it skipped over Little Earth because we had some powerful women praying for the protection at Little Earth. And that story just always stuck with me because I just understood the power of prayer, the power of the women. And also when I was growing up, there was a lot of different varieties of community protection. When I was in junior high, there was Granny Patrol. That's what we used to call it. And it was all the grandmas out there, and they had walkie-talkies, and they were reporting on things that were going on in the clusters and different things like that. But I do know that like Little Earth is special for a lot of reasons. It's one of the only housing complexes that can have American Indian preference. And I know a lot of our housing complexes in Minneapolis struggle to keep American Indian residents housed. And so like when we're thinking, and I know when we're going to be able to talk a little bit more about that history, and I'm going to leave it to my good friend Melissa. But so yeah, so like that's kind of what I know for Little Earth is stories that hold near and dear, stories about the park, injustices that have happened, memories of police shootings at Little Earth when I was a little girl, young Native men dying, hearing stories about it, not sure of their names. These are all things like right now as an adult, and I look back on, and I just remember the fear. When I was a little girl, there was only security at Little Earth, and so there wasn't a police presence. And I know that the police presence now at Little Earth is that's a whole nother topic. But I'm just gonna say that for now. And if one of my panelists, one of my good friends here, want to jump in, meet you, miigwech.
Melissa, could you give us some further background on Little Earth? I think you're mute.
I think Lisa's done a really nice job. Little Earth has that special dispensation. In other words, there was an act of Congress that made Little Earth a place that is Native preference, and that I think it is unique. It is the only urban housing development to have that status in the United States. I like the panelists here. My family had family members who lived at Little Earth at its founding in 1975. My grandfather lived there in those years. Both my uncles lived in the apartments at Little Earth. And I think, it's really in response to what was then and what remains today a severe housing crisis, insofar as I think the construction of Little Earth was really meant to offer safe, affordable housing to people in East Phillips, to community members, to Native people in East Phillips, because, since about the mid-50s, when we saw a large return of Native people to Minneapolis, there was not only a shortage of housing, but Native people lived in some of the worst housing in Minneapolis. And a lot of times, there are lots of reasons why Native people sort of made it an Indian neighborhood in East Phillips. But one of those reasons has to do with the fact that it was the only housing available to them. In other words, there was so much housing discrimination at that time that people really had nowhere else to rent. 80%, something like 80% of Southsiders in the 50s, 60s, and 70s were renters. And what that means is that oftentimes they were taken advantage of. Those properties were not well kept up. There was a high incidence of what a lot of urban design researchers or urban planners or geographers would call slum landlordism, and that simply meant that people were being taken advantage of. They were blamed oftentimes for the condition of rental housing, when it's really not on the people who are renting to keep up that housing stock. So you had a lot of that going on, and Little Earth is then a big part of being able to provide safe and affordable housing.
Great. Well, thanks, Melissa and Lisa, for sharing. I know there's many people, particularly at Little Earth, that could also share a lot of history as you have. But I think that's one thing that makes their community real unique, is that everyone has a particular picture of what Little Earth means to us, our Native community, because the vast number of people that have lived there and continue to live there. So, and it really provides a rich environment for not only our elders, but for our children. Well, we've been joined here by TJ. Hello, TJ. Welcome. TJ, could you introduce yourself, please?
Hello, my name's TJ Valtierra. I am the program director of the Little Earth Boys and Girls Club. I'm also one of the Little Earth Red Bear basketball coaches. I've been working in the community going on 6 years with hundreds of youth, and I'm glad to be here.
Thank you, TJ. I know in some of our previous conversations, as we were looking at hosting this conversation here, I think one of the questions that I heard TJ asked was, in what ways could we create partnerships to make Little Earth safer? And, the name of this panel tonight is Community Safety. So we're talking not only about making Little Earth safer, but eventually we'll come and ask questions about how can we do that, and what innovative ways can we make Little Earth safer. So I want to direct this question at TJ. TJ, why? What prompted you to ask that question about how could we make Little Earth safer? What was the reasons that you wanted to explore that particular question?
Yeah, so again, I've been there for about 6 years. In that time, I've seen a lot of violence in the park, shootings, drug use, drug deals, drug overdoses, fights. And there seems to be like a misconception that Cedar Field's owned by Little Earth when it's really public property. And so the park doesn't always get upkept the way other parks do. There's not always as many activities or positive things going on. And so that was, I mean, initially, and then the pandemic hit, and we know that the police presence was even less around the city. And so we became, like a one-stop grocery store. We were barbecuing, feeding people, all these things. And even during the summer, there was multiple shootings, young men getting shot. My 15-passenger van that I transport kids for programming, basketball, got shot in the windshield. And if my van hadn't been parked where it was parked, those bullets would have flew into the park where there was grandmas and mothers and kids, teenagers playing, shooting hoops, swinging on the swings and all types of stuff. So really what it came down to was why don't in our conversations at the Boys and Girls Club, seems like why don't Native people get the same that other parks get, right? So there's even other parks in the city now that, for instance, Phelps Park. You go down there, they have a brand new, beautiful park just built. Why can't that happen at Cedar Field? Why can't why can't our baseball field at Cedar Field actually have bases and dirt and a foul line and things like that? It's just a piece of grass that barely ever gets cut. And so it was that. And then also, what if, the idea came about, well, what if we just put a building in the field? It now becomes impossible to shoot through Cedar Field because there's a building there. You can't shoot through concrete. On top of that, the Little Earth Red Bears, we usually have 4 basketball teams every season, and we're always fighting for gym time other places because we don't have an adequate gym space. And so, again, if there was a building there, now kids can not only be safe, but their programs can be even better. So,
Josh, could you add on to TJ's elaboration of safety in Little Earth?
In what way?
How do we make Little Earth safer for our youth, our children?
I mean, there's many different ways we can make it safer, but I think what TJ was talking about, and I mean what we've been talking about to numerous amounts of people for the past few months, like that's just like the top priority is making Cedar Field safe, because that's exactly where the majority of everything happens at. I mean, people could be put on trespass here at Little Earth for gang violence, drug violence, and all that type of stuff, but then they can just go straight across the street from Little Earth and just sit in the park and, what I'm saying, still basically have contact with everybody here in the community, which is terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Because then, I mean, as we've been saying, then that makes the Cedar Field not safe anymore, because our kids won't be able to go there to play at the park. Families won't be like, there's grills out there that families can go and have barbecues with their kids and stuff and just feel safe and have fun, right? But when we have people sitting on the benches and at the benches, causing conflict and wanting to fight people and what I'm saying, wave guns and just like do drugs and do drug deals and all types of stuff like that, it's not right. We need that needs to change. So
Okay. Lisa?
Jolene Jones is texting me. She was trying to join our conversation, but she can't get in. And she mentioned that Little Earth has tried to buy Cedar Field from the Minneapolis parks many times. There's been asked to change the name. There's been asked to acquire that land. The biggest land back movement of Minneapolis could happen with gifting that Cedar Field back to the community, because what TJ is speaking about is like a jurisdiction issue. Little Earth can trespass folks, but they can just walk to the park that is right there. And then, like, say MPD does not have jurisdiction to go into the park, but the Minneapolis Parks Police don't enforce like rules, like not being there after 10, or the park is not well lit, or the suggestions from the community to invest in it. So TJ said Phelps got a new park. If we look at maybe the history of the systemic disinvestment in Cedar Field, it's going to point to systemic racism in how decisions are made regarding who gets a new park, who doesn't. When I was a little girl, I remember hearing elders speak about how upset they were. The park that is currently at Cedar Field, when it was brand new, I was a little girl. It was brand new to us, but I remember the community talking about and sharing that that it was not a new park. It was a used park from somewhere in another park off of Lindale in the south end of Minneapolis by the lakes. So someone over there got a new park. They put their old park in Cedar Field, and that's been the park that's been there for over 25 years, maybe 30 years. So I remember hearing about this disinvestment, right? And as a little girl, hearing about how the city disinvests in you, how the park systems disinvest in you, and then the community solutions are, we want the park so that we can have jurisdiction over our own policing of the park. And then number two is like what TJ's saying is build a building. Build a building that the youth can utilize. And I think they thought they were doing that when they built the brand new, beautiful building in East Phillips Park. And if you all remember, the Peacemaker Center was right on the other end on Cedar. And I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure that some of the agreement was like that building in East Phillips was going to be shared with the American Indian community. And I have not seen that happen. And I'm not sure about, I'm not sure if, I'm just checking my messages to see if Jolene's texting me. So yeah, so like, again, this chronic disinvestment, when you say, how do we make our community safe? We know how to make our community safe. What I think is another question to ask to go deeper is, how come the city doesn't invest in our solutions? How come we have to keep asking for basic things to have our kids protected, to make sure our kids are safe? And there's 1,000 kids that visit. I think on one time somebody counted how many kids visited that park every year or for a week. If you go out to any of these other parks that are brand new, newer, invested in, they do not have the numbers Little Earth has. There's like 1,000 kids, 1,000 people under 18 that live on those 9 blocks. I heard Jolene Jones say this summer that a lot of people think that Little Earth is on 2 blocks, but it's actually on 9 city blocks. And there's 1,000 kids that live there. And so like those kids are visiting the park and they're inside the park. So again, I say like, it's not about what can Little Earth do to make it safer. It's how can the city invest?
Mm-hmm. I like that question, Lisa. You asked, how come the city does not invest in our solutions? And in another context, it could be asked, how can the city invest in our solutions? I'm going to ask a question of all of you, and it's moving again in a related way as we're talking right now toward solutions. And that question is, okay, TJ?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, when we met with an architect firm, so we had like rough renderings of what a building would look like. There's an architect, 2 of them, and they said by design, whoever designed Little Earth designed it in a way that it should have never been designed that way. There should have been a huge community building from the very beginning. And so what Lisa's talking about is like someone, whether it's on purpose or not, I mean, someone designed it in a way that it shouldn't have never been designed like that. If you put all these people into close quarters housing and they don't have any place to go other than just a field, it should have never been designed that way in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Good, thank you. Here's a question I want to ask all of you, and you could answer this in no particular order. What youth-oriented opportunities and innovations can we see emerging from our explorations of examining Cedar Fields?
Can I jump in?
Yeah.
I just want to tell, I'm just going to tell another story.
That's okay, good.
This summer during the uprising, the first night, I think a couple of us posted on Little Earth 411 page, like, go outside. There's been threats to Little Earth. Someone's threatening to put Little Earth on fire. And so people were telling their neighbors, everybody came outside. It was an immediate response towards protection. By the nights following, when the National Guard and the MPD were pushing the protesters from Lake Street into our neighborhood, which was a plan. No one made a plan. No one from the city or the state made a plan to protect Little Earth or the community around it from what was going to come with the National Guard and the MPD, which were rubber bullets, which were tear gas, which was a very aggressive response, right? So that night, so during the next couple days, a few of the youth did some quick research, a few youth at Little Earth, and they made these plywood boards and cut out some string, and they put it in the bushes. And when the protesters were coming down, they were being pushed down 55 to 26 by the National Guard and the folks behind them, right? But the National Guard was also coming from the west too. So it was like trying to push them towards Cedar, right? Because when Little Earth residents ran to the protesters and said, no, don't go this way, the protesters listened, and or those who were out protecting, I would argue they were protecting too. They said, don't come this way. They put up the community roadblocks. They went the other direction. Then when the residents at Little Earth turned around, the MPD were right there. The National Guard was right there. And they started shooting rubber bullets at the Little Earth residents who were out there doing community protection. Those young boys took their shields that they made and blocked. I'm getting chills as I'm telling it, but I only heard the story from witnesses. But they pulled up their shields and they blocked those rubber bullets so that the residents, who are mostly women, to run back to Little Earth. And so, so following the next couple days, community protection became a couple different things, right? There's the community protection of the consequences of poverty. There's community protection about the consequences of continued colonization. And I would argue that houselessness, poverty, gangs, all of it is a side effect, a symptom of continued colonization. Like, our people have not been given a chance to heal. And so when those young men started protecting the community, I could see the pride in their eyes. I could see like a warrior being made. You know, it made sense. It was like we were witnessing and watching that spark that lit those young, when AIM founders were young men and the women in AIM were first developing it. I think that resurgence of power, of that internal ancestor power, was present. Like, and that's the kind of light, when our people get that light sparked in them, there's no turning it off. So like when I hear your question, Lemoyne, I keep thinking, what can we do? What can we continue to do to make sure that the youth at Little Earth and the women at Little Earth and the men of Little Earth, because there is a lot of men there who are waiting for a time to lead, to protect, and to provide for their people.
Great. That's a good story. I like that. It's a demonstration of values and virtues within our Native community right here in Minneapolis. So again, the question is, what youth-oriented opportunities and innovations can we see emerging at Little Earth right now? If you're looking ahead, what kind of new projects on top of your existing youth-oriented projects, what new projects do we see emerging? What innovations could happen at Little Earth for the youth?
Well, I know that at least at Migizi, one of the things that we talk about quite a bit is, the possibility of green jobs for youth in the community. And I know that there's been some work done at Little Earth to do work around creating employment opportunities or education opportunities for youth in like building solar panels, in creating, sustainability at Little Earth, and I know that some of that has yet to sort of fully take shape. I'm curious about the status of some of those projects.
Good. Thank you, Melissa.
Yeah, I would say some of what Josh already alluded to was esports. So we just started our esports program. It's nowhere near what we hope it will be. We have one PC. Our goal is to have like an esports center where there's multiple, probably 8 to 10 gaming PCs. And it would really be used for 3 things. One, to keep kids in a safe environment where they can have fun and game and they're not stuck in the house, right? They can come to our youth center and do it. 2, they learn the business side of it. And so they learn how to monetize their stream, how to stream, how to run social media platforms, how to edit and upload and post videos and montages and things of that nature, how to advertise, right? So we're going to be teaching them how to utilize Facebook advertising, how to build a following, and how to use social media to the benefit, right? And then the third thing is to use it as fundraising. So I'll give you an example. We have a partnership with the Minnesota Timberwolves. For those who don't know, the Timberwolves have a NBA 2K team. They're not NBA players, they're professional gamers. And they play the NBA 2K game and represent the Timberwolves. And so our hope is that maybe some of those professional gamers could come teach youth how they got to that point. And then maybe, like we talked about the Timberwolves, like maybe they'll let us play one of the Timberwolves players live on some platform as a fundraising opportunity, right? If this kid can beat Karl Anthony Towns, for example, at 2K, he has to donate, $5,000 to our youth club or whatever it is, right? Because a lot of pro athletes are into gaming too, because they can't leave the house. They're so famous. They can't just go in public all the time because they're getting bothered and autographs and pictures. And so all of them are into gaming too. So it's like, how do we build a bridge even that way between pro sports players and kids and other organizations? And so that's one thing. I think also too, how can we utilize media? Kids are so into media. So how can we get them making movies or films or documentaries, art projects, murals, right? So you like the wall by the urban farm. What if we every 3 months were to do a mural project until that entire 3-4 blocks of wall was murals, right? All done by youth and taught and learned from professional muralists or whoever needs to come on and do that. And things like that. And so we did do a documentary, actually. It's called Little Earth Pride of the People. It's on YouTube. We partnered with 2 media organizations, and Josh is actually one of them, and 2 other high school students got paid for about 9 months to learn how to make a documentary. And so what if we had our whole own media center where kids could do that every day, right? They could make films and movies and technology and STEAM and all of these things that kids are super into, robotics and stuff like that. So that's just a few examples.
Oh, that's good. Those are great examples. Any other additions to that question? If not, I've got another question. That question is, what would it take to create favorable conditions for designing a new space and place for Little Earth youth?
I did want to make one observation,
Okay.
and that has to do with sort of this, that we see the same pattern playing out where the community is really blamed for the deterioration. So in years past where, a family might be blamed for the condition of a rental property, it seems like the same pattern is sort of happening again, in the sense that Little Earth is, if not being blamed, is at least bearing the hardship of having to see Cedar Field just sort of left underdeveloped, right? And so, this is really if the land is not granted back, and I think that's a great idea, then it is really the Minneapolis Park Board that has to respond, and there has to be some urgency to, some pressure brought to bear on the park board and its members to address the issues at Cedar Field. And that really means the people who are elected, who represent that area of the city, they need to show up.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I think, and that's what brings what you just said, Melissa, actually is a good segue to that question I just asked. What would it take to create favorable conditions for the issue of designing new space or place for Little Earth youth at Cedar Fields? What would it take to create those favorable conditions? What should we do?
So we've had some of this process play out already. Some of the things that we've been told is, one, a lot of people are going to be upset if we try to take green space away. So if we put a building in the field, then we're eliminating green space. Another thing, so we'd have to, I guess, figure that out. Another thing that we've come across is apparently a lot of the park board of directors are up for re-election, and so that's kind of where we've been stalled. Is if they don't get re-elected and let's say they push past or they get us to the next phase of whatever we're trying to do, and then we have to start over from square one because I don't know when the re-election is, but someone told me it's this year. So that's another thing we would need to work in our favor on top of money, right? So we already have an estimate for the building. They said it would be $6 million. So we need $6 million. And then the last thing I'd say is we just got an email, some of us who have been working on a project for the park, that other things have taken precedent. And so from the park board of directors, strategic planner, I can't remember his name, but he said that it's not a good time to even bring it to the board because there's other things in the city going on that's taking precedent. And so I understand there's a lot going on. We got the trial, this and that, but it's like so easily it just gets put to the back burner and then it never happens. You know what I'm saying?
So how could we create the favorable conditions to make it happen? What do we do to change the minds of people in places of power and responsibility? What do we do to create these favorable conditions?
Well, I think one thing that people do know is that Little Earth does vote in city elections. Little Earth comes out to vote in pretty large number. And so they've proven time and time again to be a positive force, to be a voting bloc when certain candidates have, come knocking. In recent history, Little Earth helped to elect Dave Hutch. In recent memory, Little Earth helped to elect Angela Conley. Little Earth certainly has helped elect Alondra Cano. And so I think, some of it has got to be sort of a campaign or an issue-based effort to work on this issue at Cedar Field. And that could take place in and around park board elections. It may also mean somebody stepping forward to run for park board on some of those issues that, are really central to what's happening at Cedar Field and in the blocks around it. Some of those issues would likely include the Roof Depot project, some of the other kinds of issues you hear about with bike lanes and some livability things that people talk about in the immediate neighborhood. But to really run on those issues that are important to families at Little Earth can be an effective way to do it. It doesn't always mean that the candidate's going to win, but it can bring a lot of attention in certain ways, and push the needle a little bit. Short of somebody on this panel announcing that they might someday run for park board, I have not. I've heard a couple names put forward. People who really do want to see some movement on this particular issue.
I think anybody on this panel would be a good candidate. Any other comments on this question?
Yeah, I'd just say I think it would take a collaboration of Native organizations coming together, creating some type of campaign sooner rather than later. Well, the international spotlight is on the city of Minneapolis to actually ask people, if you care, it's time to put your money and resources and power where your mouth is, right? To be more than just a social media hashtag or post when you feel guilty, like to actually the time is now to make something happen.
Mm-hmm. I think a collaboration of organizations is an excellent idea. And I think that's where you would be able to amplify your voice. Any other comments on this question? It's a good question.
I think your fundraising question, TJ, is an important question. Where do you find the muscle to raise $6 million, right? And I don't necessarily have the answer, but that has got to be, part of the 1-2 punch that gets the job done. You can have, a campaign. At the end of the day, you have to have some pretty experienced fundraisers making doubling and tripling their asks of community that there is money to be raised. And so I think it's about identifying those partners in philanthropy.
Mhm. Could that fundraising question be asked of a collaboration of organizations?
I think not even just the organizations, but how about the other institutions that are housed within our neighborhood? So like right in our backyard, you have Children's Minnesota, Alina, you have a lot of businesses in or around our neighborhood where they are driving constantly through Little Earth every day to get to work and to drive past. So there are a lot of potential other partnerships who might have an investment in making sure that Little Earth youth are protected and have like good space to be, thrive, to live. And also like the fundraising question too is like, if it would be on Little Earth to build the building if they had the land from the park, because we've seen that the park has not invested in Cedar Field. They're not listening to Little Earth. And so we do need people to get them to listen. And I know our youth have been saying this for a long time, been wanting to change the name of the park. They even know what name they want to change it to.
Mm-hmm.
So our youth have been speaking, and I think it's like they've been speaking, and I feel like been saying a lot of the same things. I mean, the tech stuff is all new, like the gaming stuff is all new. I try not to do the older people thing where my eyes glazed over and I was like, what are they talking about? Because I know it's something important to youth.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that that's the investment, right? Whether I understand it, I get it, because I am definitely not in that generation for gaming, but I know that it's important, and I hear you when you say it is, and I believe you when you say it is, and I believe you. I believe the youth, and I believe the youth workers who say this is how you invest in our youth. And 10 years ago it was something else, but this is what I know about when I listen to community and about what community is saying. I hear it. I try to hear it and not filter it through my own lens, or filter it through my own what I think it should be, or my solution, or the things that I can only see how it could happen. Because Little Earth getting Cedar Field, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. I know Little Earth is going to get Cedar Field, and they're going to rename it, and I know that they're going to get to build whatever they want to build there, because that's how powerful the people are.
Good.
Yeah. I think, one of the, there's been a lot of what they would call placemaking that's happened on Franklin Avenue as a result of, 50 years of organizing. So we know we can do it. We see, all of the development that's taken place on the cultural corridor on Franklin. So it can be replicated. I do think it means that leadership has got to, focus their attention, like Native organizational leadership would have to really focus their attention. But I also think it's on the city. I'm careful to say, we obviously we can do for ourselves. Like this community has proved that time and time again, whether it's like the Granny Patrol, which is a story I love, or organizing an esports athletic league. Like the community has the power and the ability to do it. And I really think, we have to crack some of the invisibility issues with the city. The city has, again, and I don't know how many times it's happened, passed a resolution saying that, there will be truth and reconciliation. And I'm part of a group that's convened to make some recommendations. And it is not easy to, help people understand sort of the issues that urban Native people face. And it really is on the city to be a partner in, if it's bringing political pressure to bear on the park board and its leadership to, grant land back to the community at Little Earth or what have you. The city, I really do believe, has to step up, and that's, council people from every ward, not just Ward 9.
Mm-hmm. Any other comments on this question? Because here's another question, and I think what you're all saying, I could understand I could see some optimism about the imagery that you're all sharing here, in collaboration of organizations and bringing other institutions to the table to utilize these kinds of opportunities to engage the city, maybe the county, But I think it brings us to another question. And here's the question. If our success in building a new facility dedicated to Indigenous youth at Little Earth was completely guaranteed, what bold steps might we choose? If our success in building a new facility dedicated to Indigenous youth at Little Earth was completely guaranteed, what bold steps might we choose? If we had $6 million in hand, if we had all of everything, all the stars were in alignment, what bold steps might we choose to move forward?
I'd say we most definitely would have to open up opportunities to our youth throughout this new facility, because as you all know, I'm a teen specialist. I work with youth all the time, so I help them find jobs. I help them build resumes and all types of things. And a lot of the times, my teens come back to me and say, "Yo, Josh, I didn't get the job. They're not trying to hire me. No one's trying to hire me." And it could be because of the pandemic, but also, it could be because none of our youth are like, none of them are too like experienced when it comes to the working fields, when it comes to retail, when it comes to working food services, when it comes to just plain and simply having a job. So like their resumes don't really have too much on them for these businesses to say, yes, let's hire this youth, let's hire this guy, this girl, So I think with the new facility, if we were to have it completely guaranteed for us, we had it all, I think we'd have to definitely open up opportunities for our youth to have job experiences and to get paid.
Good. Thank you, Josh.
I think this is kind of also part of a conversation that's been going on in Minneapolis for a couple, at least 2 generations. And that is, are we going to be, is it jobs and employment that we're providing? Like that's the programmatic focus, or is it, arts and culture, right? And so there's always this push-pull between the two things, even in the construction of the Indian Center, right? It was really a lot about, the JTPA program and the GED program. And then people started to say, no, it really has to be about, it has to be a cultural center. And we see this tug of war, play out time and time again. And so like, if we had, if we had sort of all of our, fundraising needs met, then I would look forward to a time when you didn't have to choose between, the job program and cultural programming, right? Where, all of that, could be met. And there wasn't this sort of, we have to make sure that, we do, that we're we shouldn't have to choose one or the other.
Mhm. Good.
So I think for me, like trying to answer this question, I keep circling back to this idea of community protection and the idea of like the American Indian community. We create unique spaces of safety all the time, right? And our youth can be empowered to create these unique they can be empowered to continue to make these continued safety plans for the community and be empowered and be employed, right? So what if the youth are employed to keep generating their ideas? Their ideas then are about improving the cedar field, and it's directly improving their community. So it's not a job at Wendy's. It's not. It's a job of like rooted within community empowerment that is also going to be about reestablishing and reconnecting and reaffirming our native original ancestral right to being, like who we are as Native people, like something about restoring and reconnecting and reliving that, like getting young people that access and ability to not only learn their languages, learn about where they come from, but then also be able to do that in a way that they can then support their family. Like a lot of people are becoming language teachers and working in our community at the I'm graduating with my master's degree this May in public health. And my brother was like, how come you keep getting all these degrees and you still work on Franklin? Well, technically, I don't work on Franklin anymore. I'm on 24th and 15th at Minnesota Indian Women's Resource Center. But, that's because I'm going to take everything that I've learned and I'm bringing it back to community. And I'm bringing it back to the people. And I want to do that because I was invested in as a youth. I was given opportunities to travel to reservations and meet other Native kids. And I was given, and I was paid to do it. And our organizations in the Twin Cities, our Native organizations, are phenomenal. The way the Native community comes together is phenomenal. We see that all the time. People look at our community as leaders on how we're able to band together and come together. So what bold steps? I think just by design, Native people are bold visionaries. So I just say go out into Little Earth, walk around, talk to the youth, and then invest in every single idea they have.
Well put. Other comments?
Yeah, I
I
have
would
a
say
small comment. Oh, go ahead, TJ.
All right. I would say for the building, one thing we already talked about was how do we make, if we were to get a building, how do we make it to also bring money in, right? So do we build a clinic inside the lobby? Or do we have a restaurant or, some type of like food court space where maybe 2 or 3 native themed restaurants or cuisine or whatever. And then not only does it generate revenue, but it generates jobs for the youth, right? And their siblings or parents, where it's like, hey, not only do we have the youth center where you can come do programming, but this youth center is also making money through, right? Maybe we use it as a space where you rent the space for powwows, for other things. And then now it becomes, yes, it's for youth programming, but it's also bringing money back in. And then there can be internships and other jobs specifically designed with the facility already in mind, right? And
So
so
you
then
got to be
kids,
careful. You got to be careful about trying to do like a food court or something, because you're gonna make a lot of aunties mad who put on their taco sales every month. You know what I mean? There's got to be some maybe something else, but yeah, because the community makes a lot of money on their
Yeah,
so we'll just
that's
have to
true.
be a little delicate with the economy that's already happening.
I mean, that's kind of already a thing though. Like with the office, the registration office we have here, we have a small gym with like a commercial kitchen that a lot of our residents take turn using to do their very own fundraisers, sell Indian tacos and all types of stuff like that. So once again, if we had this a completely guaranteed new facility, I mean, we could easily do the same thing we've been doing, and that's taking turns on using the kitchen to do our very own fundraisers for our individual families. Also, I had a little comment dating back to what Lisa was saying about like the restoration and everything. So growing up and going to the Little Earth Boys and Girls Club and all that, I remember seeing a lot of our young guys doing like a drum group and all that, and learning how to make their very own handheld drums and drumsticks, and they would group up in a room and everyone would learn how to sing and all types of stuff. And like I've like this is back when I was like 12 or 13. I'm 19 now, and I've never heard of it happening or anything. I've never heard of any programs or anything like that of our young men here learning how to sing and do drums. So
So that's cool that you're saying that, because right now, MIWRC and NACC are working on a partnership to do some hand drum making. And we're gonna a young man named Kuntz is gonna be doing that, but maybe we bring it over to Little Earth and do it with the youth there. And I know that Charlie Thayer is the youth worker who's organizing the young Native male group at Native American Community Clinic. So I think like there's so much. I love to hear you say that, because it is a good reminder that we have to bring our programming straight to where the people are, and where are the people and where are the kids. And that's a good reminder. And there's a lot of people in community who want to do that and bring that to Little Earth and bring that to the youth.
Good. Well, thank you for your comments, which brings us to our final question. And we're getting close to the end of our time. So here's a final question. What conversation, if begun today, could ripple out in a way that creates new possibilities for the future of an Indigenous youth facility that accommodates innovative programs?
I think one of the conversations I'd like to have is with Council Vice President Andrea Jenkins, and really talk to her about the importance of this issue to the community, because there's a lot of, work being done, at least at the city council level, on some of these issues around budgets and budgeting. And I think, $6 million is a lot of money, but you get a couple of, partners involved, maybe the city, maybe others, and pretty soon you start to, create some urgency, and that can help. So like one of the things I would, love to be able to do is to talk to her staff, to talk to other, folks at like the Division of Race and Equity in the city of Minneapolis, and say, the community can't say it any louder. They really do want to work on this issue of either getting land back at receiving the land back that is Cedar Field now, or, working with the park board to develop it. So I would want to have some of those conversations with city council.
Good. Thank you.
I would say, in my opinion, our new partnership with Shield One, between Little Earth and Shield One. Shield One is an organization of NFL players, and so in that initial partnership, um, they've been interested in the idea of how to reach youth, right? So we've talked to them about the park proposal briefly. And in turn, right, one of the players flew Josh and I to his hometown because he just opened a brand new teen center in his hometown in South Carolina. And so he said, I want to inspire you guys to see that this is possible, and you get a behind the scenes look at what it took and how many organizations and partnerships and officials it took to make this happen in collaboration. And the other thing that came of it was we were able to be introduced to the president of the Boys and Girls Club, the national president. And so Boys and Girls Club of America is a national organization where if we are somehow able to have a meeting or meetings with the national leadership, that brings in even more, not just money, but like social equity and awareness now, because now it's at a national level and not just a state or city level.
Right. Thank you, TJ.
I guess for me, I don't know. Some land back, Cedarfield, all the way. And also, I think the city of Minneapolis and the governor owe Little Earth an apology after what happened during the uprising. And they need to apologize to the youth of Little Earth. And they might as well just acknowledge that they haven't been investing in Little Earth youth or Little Earth folks in community ever. And so to me, I think innovative programs can begin and start when the youth can see that their voices are being heard and that their experience is being acknowledged. And who can that come back better from than the leaders of the city and the state? And I don't know. I think that's it for me, Lemoyne.
Good. Thank you, Lisa. Melissa or Josh, you have any last comments on this question?
No, I think I'm good.
Okay, thank you, Josh. Melissa?
I think I really like that just that observation that, there is an economy at Little Earth. And, if people really do understand how it works, then you can amplify what works. You can do more of what works. And that is always going to, get the community like involved and galvanized, right? People will see themselves in the project. They will see themselves included. So doing more of what's already working will always, I think, bring the energy that you need to get it done.
Good. Thank you for all your perspectives, your insight, your knowledge, your wisdom about youth at Little Earth, as well as the potential and possibility of acquiring land for a youth facility. There's a lot to be done around this issue. There's still conversations to be had. There's collaborations to be done, whether it be with organizations or with institutions. There's got to be mobilization of our Native community with other players within our local community, maybe our county, maybe our state, as far up as the governor, because these are critically important conversations to have. Our children must be placed up front, and we have to take care of them. And what better way to do that than by sharing our values and virtues our community knowledge and wisdom, our cohesiveness as a group, not just as individuals. We live in a society that is made up of individuals, and they recognize each other as individuals and whatever it is they do. However, that's often in contrast to what we do as Indigenous peoples. We recognize each other's achievements as a group. And that's exactly, I believe, what we want to do, is to continue to bring in the Native perspective about group achievement and the values and virtues that it has in contrast to the individual ways of living this life. And I think that's the advantage of Little Earth itself right now, really having a unique status within housing and with their home environments. This is excellent. So with that, I want to thank all of you for participating in tonight's conversation. Maybe we may have another conversation. Would you all agree to that if it were to happen? Good. Thank you. So be thinking about some of these questions that we've posed tonight, and be thinking about other questions that might arise from what we've seen. So with that, I'd like to ask Robert to come back aboard, and Ogama, and say thank you to you and Ogama, Robert, for having us. Thank you.
Wow, Peeny Gigi, what a great conversation to start. I just feel like we have the capacity to really to get the word out and really do some good things because of all the work that you guys do, but all the work that's happening around us right now and the people that can help Little Earth and what's happening. We just got to get the word out there and really, like Melissa said, is talk to our politicians. Election season's coming up, and land back is a real thing, right, Ogama?
Yes, land back is definitely a real thing. And, I'm not a resident of Little Earth. I've only ever visited a few times, but this is something that every time that we've talked about this with people in this group in meetings discussing this panel, it hits my heart in such a way that I don't even have any words for it. And I am so proud and happy to be able to help these people and the members of this community get the word out. And I really can't wait to see what awesome things are going to happen.
Well, I just want to say, hopefully, unless somebody else has somebody to say today, I just want to say you've been listening to the Sunday Night Symposium. The Native American Community Clinic and Native Roots Radio brought this on, community safety and protection, but I think it's more about community and how we can protect our community and also let people know that our community hasn't been protected. So I just want to say Peeny Gigi for everyone for being on tonight and everybody that was watching. So thank you so much, and we'll see you next time, hopefully very soon. What a great panel.
Thank you and good night.
Good night.